The clinking of silverware and the hum of brunch chatter filled the air. But my mother's words cut through it all like a knife. "She's only here because I felt sorry for her," she said, loud enough for everyone at the table to hear. Her voice was venomous, a smirk tugging at her lips as she reached for her mimosa. "Before we start, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from, which city you're in," she continued. "And after watching the full video, tell us what you'd do in this situation. Be honest. Let me know in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's get started." The table fell silent. My sister snickered softly, whispering something to her fiancé, as though the humiliation of her own blood was some kind of entertainment. My father shifted uncomfortably, but didn't defend me. I set my teacup down gently, my hands steady, though my heart felt like it was being crushed before everyone. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. Instead, I took another sip, the cool porcelain rim against my lips hiding the fire burning in my chest. Inside, though, a storm was brewing. I had endured her cruel words for years, being called the disappointment, the failure, the charity case of the family. And now she was putting it on display in front of relatives and strangers alike. "You're so quiet," my aunt murmured from across the table, her eyes flicking toward me, filled with a mix of pity and curiosity. "You never stand up for yourself, do you?" I met her gaze, my voice calm but sharp. Some people let their actions speak louder than words. For a brief moment, silence filled the table. My mother scoffed, tossing her napkin onto her lap. "Actions? What actions? You live off scraps. Don't embarrass yourself." Her cruelty no longer shocked me. What stunned them all was how I didn't flinch. I wasn't the girl they thought they could break. An hour later, the mood in the restaurant changed. The door opened, and all eyes turned as a tall man in a tailored navy suit walked in. His presence commanded attention, effortlessly silencing chatter. His dark hair was neatly styled, his steps firm, and his gaze unwavering as it scanned the room until it landed on me. My heart raced, not out of fear, but with a satisfaction I had been holding on to all morning. "Emma," he said as he approached, his voice deep, steady, and commanding. Mom froze. Her fork slipped from her hand, clattering against the plate, echoing across the table. Her face drained of color as she looked at him, as though seeing a ghost. Standing there was my husband, Daniel Lawson. The man she never believed existed. The one she thought I had made up when I refused to share details about my private life. But now, here he was, more powerful, more commanding, and more real than anyone at that table had ever imagined. And for the first time in years, my mother had nothing to say. The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Forks hovered midair. Conversations stopped. Even the waiters hesitated as Daniel pulled out the empty chair beside me and sat down. His hand briefly brushed mine, steady and protective. That simple gesture was enough to silence the cruel whispers I'd endured at this table. "Sorry I'm late," Daniel said smoothly, offering a polite smile to the relatives who had been staring. His tone was casual, but the weight of his presence was undeniable, pressing on everyone like a storm ready to break. My mother's lips parted, but no words came out. She blinked, trying to convince herself this was real. You're her husband?" she stammered, her voice cracking. The sharpness she usually aimed at me dulling into disbelief. Daniel tilted his head slightly, his jaw tightening. "Yes, and who exactly are you?" Her mouth opened and closed, like a fish gasping for air. "I'm her mother." Daniel leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. And in that moment, the table understood. He wasn't just anyone. His confidence, his control, and his very presence radiated power. People like him didn't need introductions. They commanded the room without even asking. My sister Amber was the first to break the tension, scoffing. "This can't be real, Emma. You're married to him." She laughed, as though the idea was a cruel joke. "Look at her. She can barely pay her rent." The words stung, but I didn't let them see how much. Daniel's grip tightened over mine before I could even speak. "Interesting," Daniel remarked, his tone unusually calm. "From where I stand, she's the strongest, most capable woman I've ever met. Maybe that's why she doesn't waste her time bringing others down." Amber's smile wavered. Her fiancé shifted uncomfortably beside her. I could feel the weight of eyes on me from every direction. Relatives who had once overlooked me. Cousins who whispered about my failures, now staring, likely wondering how they missed the truth. Mom finally snapped out of her daze. Wait, she demanded sharply, her voice shaking with a mix of fury and desperation. If you're really her husband, then who are you? Daniel retrieved his wallet from his suit jacket and placed a sleek, embossed business card on the table. The golden letters gleamed under the light. A deep silence followed as my aunt leaned forward, squinting at the name. Her eyes widened instantly. Daniel Lawson, CEO of Lawson Global Holdings. The shock that rippled through the table was like a wave crashing down. My uncle coughed into his napkin. My cousin's jaw dropped. My sister's fiancé muttered a curse. But my mother, she went completely pale. Her fork was forgotten on her plate, her perfectly manicured fingers twitching as she reached for her water. You've been mocking your own daughter, Daniel said sharply now, while she's quietly risen above every insult you've thrown her way. And yet you never noticed. The way he said it wasn't angry. It was worse. It was cold, controlled. Each word cut through the silence like a knife. I sat there, still and silent. But my heart raced. For years I'd dreamed of this moment, not as revenge, but as justice. Proof. A reflection held up to the people who had spent their lives humiliating me. Amber laughed again, but this time her voice cracked. This is ridiculous. You're lying. Emma can't, she wouldn't. Daniel turned toward her, narrowing his eyes. Do you think she's beneath me? That a woman has to prove herself to you before she's worthy of love? Maybe you should ask yourself why you're so quick to belittle someone who has done nothing but endure your cruelty with grace. Amber flushed bright red, her mouth snapping shut. For once, she had no clever retort. My mother finally regained her voice, though it trembled. Emma, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you tell us? I let out a slow breath, my voice calm and steady, filling the space at the table. Because every time I tried to share something about my life, you turned it into a weapon. You never wanted the truth. You just wanted something you could use against me. So I learned to stay quiet. Silence was safer. Her eyes flickered with something I had never seen before. Not remorse, fear. Daniel's gaze swept across the table. She doesn't need your approval. She doesn't need your validation. And she certainly doesn't need your pity. She has everything she needs right here. He lifted my hand, pressing his lips gently to my knuckles. It was subtle, but it spoke volumes. The tension in the room was palpable, each relative frozen between disbelief and awe. But I wasn't looking at them anymore. I was watching my mother, seeing her mask finally crack. For years, she had built her life on feeling superior, reminding me at every turn that I wasn't good enough. But now she looked small, shaken, cornered by the truth she could no longer dismiss. And I sat there, sipping my tea again. The taste was sharper, sweeter even, because for the first time in my life, her silence belonged to me. My mother's hands trembled as she set her glass down. The faint clink louder than the chatter that had resumed around the restaurant. But at our table, no one dared to breathe too deeply. The air was thick with everything left unspoken. I don't understand, my mother whispered, her eyes darting back and forth between me and Daniel, as though looking for some loophole, an escape. You've been hiding this from us? Why? Her voice wasn't soft with affection. It was laced with fear. The kind that only comes when someone realizes they no longer hold the power. I tilted my head slightly, my tone still calm. Hiding? No. I just stopped sharing pieces of myself with people who never cared enough to listen. My aunt shifted uncomfortably in her chair, her gaze flickering between us. Marilyn, she said quietly, addressing my mother. You've been tough. Maybe it's time to acknowledge that. Tough. The word lingered in the air, a poor substitute for years of cruelty. Tough. I finally spoke, a bitter laugh escaping. You think that's tough? When your own mother says, in front of strangers, that you're nothing. When she only invites you to degrade you. I looked directly at my mother. That's not tough. That's intentional. It's cruelty disguised as family. Daniel squeezed my hand, but I didn't need reassurance anymore. I was standing on the ground I had built for myself. Amber interrupted, her voice cutting. Oh, come on, Emma. You're always the victim. Maybe if you had actually done something with your life, Mom wouldn't have to feel ashamed. The words stung, but they didn't cut deep like they used to. Instead, I leaned forward, my eyes locking with hers. Ashamed of me? Or envious that I didn't beg for scraps of approval like you still do? Her face flushed. She opened her mouth to argue, but Daniel's steady, low voice stopped her. Careful, he warned, his tone sending a chill through the room. You have no idea the kind of strength it takes to endure what she has. Amber's fiancé shifted nervously in his seat, tugging at his collar. He looked like he wanted to disappear. But my mother wasn't done yet. Her pride wouldn't let her stay quiet. You think bringing a man here makes you better, Emma? That will suddenly treat you differently because of his money? Her words were sharp, her last grasp at control. I met her glare with calm certainty. No, Mom. I don't want your approval. Not anymore. This isn't about money. It's about respect. Something you never gave me, no matter how hard I tried to earn it. Her face twisted, cracks in her mask deepening. For the first time, she seemed uneasy, vulnerable. Daniel leaned in, his eyes locked on hers. You've spent years underestimating her. But what you never understood is this. Emma doesn't need your pity, and she never did. The truth is, she's stronger than this entire table put together. The silence that followed was suffocating. Amber tried again, her voice now shrill. This is ridiculous. You're just trying to make us look bad. I turned to her, my tone soft but firm. You don't need my help for that. You've done a great job all on your own. Laughter came from a table far away, someone overhearing, though they didn't understand. But it broke the tension. A reminder that the world outside this family drama still spun while my family's empire of cruelty fell apart piece by piece. Finally, my father spoke, his voice quiet, worn. Enough. His eyes were on me, but there was no venom in them, unlike my mother's. Emma, I didn't realize. No. I interrupted, my voice steady. You realized, you just stayed silent. And silence can be just as cruel as the words she throws at me. His face tightened, shame flickering, but it was quickly hidden. I looked around at them all. The family who had mocked me, laughed at me, turned every gathering into a stage for my humiliation. And for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt seen. Daniel's arm brushed mine as he leaned back. I think we're done here, he said. His tone wasn't angry. It was final. But before he could stand, my mother spoke up, her voice cracking. Wait. The word stopped everyone, pulling their attention to her. She sat still, gripping the edge of the table. Her lips trembled. For a moment, she seemed small, fragile. Emma, she whispered. I didn't mean. I raised my hand, stopping her. Don't try to change the story now. You meant every word. The only difference is that today, you finally realized your words don't have power over me anymore. The weight of the moment pressed against my chest, but it wasn't suffocating. It was liberating. Daniel stood, gently pulling me up with him. His presence felt like a shield, but I didn't need protecting anymore. Not here. Not now. I took one last glance behind me, my voice steady and clear. I came here to drink tea, not to beg for affection. And I'm leaving with exactly what I need. The room seemed to breathe out as we walked away, their stunned quietness following us like a shadow. But for once, it wasn't my burden to bear, it was theirs. As we stepped into the sunlight, Daniel's hand warm in mine, I felt something I had waited my entire life to experience. Freedom wasn't about running away, it was about standing tall. Even when the world tried to knock you down. The sunlight outside felt different, warmer, brighter, as if the very air was lighter, no longer weighed down by that table pressing on me. But I knew it wasn't over. Families like mine never let things end neatly. Sure enough, before we even reached the car, my phone buzzed. Amber's name flashed on the screen. I didn't answer. Another buzz, followed quickly by one more. Mom, then Dad. Call after call, one after another, like they were scrambling to fix the cracks in their carefully crafted image. Daniel glanced at my phone, then at me. You don't owe them anything, he said softly. I swallowed hard, my chest tight. I know, but I want them to hear me just one more time. So I answered. Emma. Mom's voice came through, high-pitched and frantic. Please don't leave it like this. We just didn't know. You didn't want to know, I interrupted, my voice steady but sharp. You never asked. You never listened. Every time I tried to open up, you turned it against me. And now you're scared. Not sorry. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then Amber's voice broke in shrill. You're making this way worse than it is. Do you even realize how you embarrassed us in there? I chuckled bitterly, but there was freedom in the sound. Funny. You spent years humiliating me in front of anyone who'd listen. But the moment the truth makes you uncomfortable, I'm the villain. Daniel placed his hand gently on my knee. A silent reminder. I had already won. Emma. Mom's voice trembled now, desperation slipping through. We can start over. Come home. Bring him. We'll talk as a family. No, I said firmly. You don't get to call this family when all you've ever given me is shame. I have a family now, one that doesn't need your approval to exist. The line went silent. Then softly, I added, you'll never use me as your scapegoat again. And I hung up. For the first time ever, the click of that call ending didn't bring guilt. It brought peace. We drove in silence for a while, the city passing by outside. Then Daniel reached for my hand, his thumb gently brushing my skin. You didn't just stand up to them, he said. You freed yourself. His words sank in, like a truth I had always known but had never fully claimed. Later, as we sat on our balcony looking over the city skyline, my phone lit up again. Texts from cousins, relatives, some apologizing, others curious, some suddenly wanting to reconnect. But I didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, I turned to Daniel. For once, I whispered, I don't feel small anymore. He smiled and pulled me close. That's because you never were. You just finally see it. The city lights sparkled below, but they couldn't compare to the glow inside me. My mother's fork clattering on the plate. Her face going pale when she saw Daniel. Amber's silence when confronted. These weren't just moments of revenge. They were reminders that, no matter how many years they tried to crush me, I had risen higher. And the best part? I hadn't needed to scream, beg, or fight for it. All I had to do was stand in my truth, completely and finally. That night, I muted every chat, silenced every call. And for the first time in years, I slept peacefully. Because my silence no longer came from fear. It came from power.